Hey guys, welcome back. Today on The Untidy Artist, we're making decoupage Easter eggs with paper napkins. Decoupage is the art or craft of decorating objects with paper cutouts, and today we'll be using paper napkins and cutting the napkins out in different shapes and making them into a collage on our Easter eggs. Let's grab some supplies and get started. The first thing you'll need is an egg, and you can just grab an egg out of your fridge. Jumbo eggs work really well because they have a thicker shell, and then you'll be poking a hole into each end with a pin and blowing the inside of the egg out. Now, I actually found these dyeable craft eggs at my local craft store and was curious about them, so I'll be using these today, but either will work. You'll need some Mod Podge glue, and you can use the glossy kind or the matte kind. It just depends on if you want them glossy or matte. And then you'll need a little cup to put your glue in and a foam craft brush. And then you'll need some paper napkins. Now, you can actually use any type of paper napkin with this. One great thing I loved about this is that you can use up old napkins from different occasions like birthdays or other holidays, and just look for some that have unique and fun designs on them. I found some at my grocery store. I actually got these at IKEA, and I really loved the pattern on this. It reminded me of my daughter Sydney, and I just thought it would be really pretty to do for Easter. So I'll be cutting these out in different shapes to put on my Easter eggs. Then you'll need a sharp pair of scissors so that you can cut out the shapes in more detail. And that's it. So the first step is to grab your egg, and if you're using a real egg, you'll want to take a thumbtack and poke a hole in both ends of the egg and then blow the inside of the egg out into a container. And here you see my beautiful daughter Gabe helping me out with this part. Okay, the next step is to grab your paper napkins and open them up, and they usually have several layers of paper, and we'll be separating those later. And grab your scissors, and you're going to cut out some of the shapes. So I'll be cutting out some of the ovals, and then I'll also be cutting out some of the flowers in more detail. I'll be using some of the pink and white stripes, and then you can also just cut random pieces and use those also. So I am going to cut a piece out of the center here. Because I'm cutting the oval out on this one, and it will be a bigger piece of the napkin, I wanted to cut it in a spot that didn't have a fold in it. And then you can see I'm just going around the edges. It doesn't have to be perfect, and it's totally up to you what shapes you cut out. So I decided to do a couple of bigger shapes, and so I have this oval, and then I'm going to cut out some of the pink stripes here. And you can see you can actually get a lot of different shapes cut out of one napkin. So you can make several Easter eggs with very few napkins at all. So I'm just cutting out some of the stripes, and you can always go back later and cut these smaller if you'd like. And this will be fun to fill in different parts of the egg. And now I'm going to cut out one of the flowers in more detail. And the reason you want different shapes and different sizes of cutouts is you'll be layering them on the egg, and it's nice to have different shapes to fit into the different spaces. And then this one I decided to kind of cut just a random shape, and so I'm kind of just cutting out some straight lines kind of around the flower. And I liked how it looked with that little bit of red at the top. And with this one, I just wanted to cut out the flower. So here are my shapes, and you can see I have a couple of bigger shapes, and then I have some that are cut out in more detail, some random pieces, and then my little stripes to fill in. And obviously, whatever design you're using, kind of just think about what shapes you need to cut out with that. Then grab your glue, and I'm going to pour it into my little container. And using my craft brush, we're going to start applying the glue to the egg. Now we're going to be working in small sections. So we're not going to put glue on the entire egg. That's really the key with doing anything decoupage is you want to do it in sections, and you want to let it dry in between, because if you touch the glue when it's tacky, it will start to lift up on the tissue, and it will just make a mess and move the napkin paper around. So I've got my big oval here that has my little rose in the center, and I'm going to lay it across kind of at an angle around the side of my egg. And there's no right and wrong way to apply these. It's totally just up to you. I kind of like putting them on randomly because it was really interesting the different shapes and the different looks that they each had, even when I made several out of the same type of napkin. So I smoothed it down with my fingers, then I'm going to take another little bit of glue and put a thin layer of glue over the top. And then this part's optional. I like to take my finger and lightly run it over the egg. Now make sure that you only put your fingers on the glue when the glue is really wet, right after you've applied it. Otherwise, once it starts to get tacky, it'll just be an icky mess. So that's my first piece of the napkin that I've put on my egg, and then I'm going to slide the egg around and put on another piece on the other side, smoothing it out with my finger, adding a little more glue, smoothing it out once again, and if you don't want to use your finger, you can actually just use the foam brush. And then I'm going to put another one, and I kind of just look at where the open spaces are. And this one I decided to do a little bit closer to the bottom. And you can see I touched my napkin there. So you can see it started to pull it up. If that happens, which it might, just take your foam brush and gently put a little bit more glue over that section. And you can always lay something over that section and just overlap it a little bit. And then you're going to carefully set it aside and let it dry. And if you get impatient, you can always use your hairdryer on that part. And once it's dry and I can handle it again, I'm going to add my second layer. So I'm going to just start filling in the open spaces with some of my different shapes and some of my smaller shapes. So at the top here, I thought it would be nice to put this little set of leaves because it kind of fit nicely around the top of the egg, and that way I have the top of the egg covered. And you follow the same steps every time you apply a piece of the napkin. You're going to put some glue down, put your napkin down, press it down gently, and then add some more glue and smooth out the edges. So on this little spot, I'm adding some of the stripes. You can see how it fills it in just really pretty. And none of the patterns line up perfectly. It's all pretty random. Putting another little rose shape on that end. And some more of my pink stripes. The cool thing is if you make several eggs out of one type of napkin, they all turn out really different. And then here's one of my more detailed flowers, and I'm going to just place that so it's overlapping some of the other parts. And it's fun because where the napkin paper is so thin, you can actually see the designs through it. So then I carefully set it aside, and I'm going to let it dry again. And you can see up close here, I've still got some little white spaces that I want to fill in. So I'm going to use some smaller pieces that I cut out of the napkin, and I'm just going to fill those in. And once I've filled those in, I'm going to set my egg aside and let it dry completely. And that's it, guys. You're all set. These are a lot of fun to make. They're just really beautiful and the type of thing that you can use year after year as an Easter decoration. It's also fun to start looking at different types of napkins that are out there because there are a lot of really fun designs, and it's a great way to use up old napkins from other occasions. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any comments or questions, please post those below. Please check out some of my other tutorials. I have a lot of other fun Easter egg tutorials as well as other craft tutorials. You can find those on my website, untidyartist.com, or by subscribing to my YouTube channel. And if you haven't already subscribed, please do. Give this a big thumbs up if you liked it, and we'll see you next time.